Coffee cafeteria. It's being filled live by Austin Levesque, who forgot his recording device. That's really loud. Jeff will find the right tone, I'm sure. Whoops, that's probably not it. Oh, that sounds good. Although I get a little bit of feedback in my back ear. But I'm sure Jeff will find the right volume, Austin. Yes. Are you nervous? What are your legs doing? Too much coffee this morning?
and welcome to the 2022 Lincoln County Democratic Committee's Senate Primary Forum. I'm Chris Johnson, Chair of the Lincoln County Democratic Committee. We're excited to hear tonight from David Levesque of Newcastle and Cameron Rennie of Bristol, who are Democratic candidates for the June 14 primary for Maine Senate. It's District 13, and first, I'd like to recognize a few others. Tonight, you'll hear mostly from our Senate candidates, but you'll also hear from friends and neighbors who will be asking questions of our candidates and volunteers who will ask questions on behalf of those who couldn't be here tonight. And you'll hear from our moderators, Kelly Whitlock Burton, LCDC Vice Chair and Campaign Leader, and Howard Waxman, our Campaign Manager. In addition to Cameron and David, we have a number of other candidates in attendance who we'd like to recognize. Please stand when I call your name. Lincoln County Commissioner William Blodgett. Welcome. Bill is running for re-election to represent District 2, which includes the towns of Bremen, Bristol, Monhegan, Plantation, Noblesboro, South Bristol, and Waldoboro. Evan Gudkowski. Evan is a progressive independent candidate for House District 47, which includes Alna, Jefferson, Whitefield, and Wiscasset. Welcome. Tom Maroney, candidate for House District 48, which includes Boothbay, Boothbay Harbor, Edgecombe, South Bristol, Southport, and Westport Island. And Holly Stover, candidate also for House District 48, which includes Boothbay, Boothbay Harbor, Edgecombe, South Bristol, Southport, and Westport Island, and is presently serving in that district. Thanks to you for attending and to candidates running to represent Lincoln County who couldn't be here tonight. You can get more information from the candidates after the forum at the tables along the side wall. You can also sign up for information about joining the Lincoln County Dems. Buy raffle tickets for a chance to win a Turner Barn dinner hosted on North Haven Island by Nebo Lodge, and make a reservation for this Sunday's online Francis Perkins celebration honoring Barbara Burt and featuring a keynote address from our Congresswoman Shelley Pingree. Now, before we begin, some details about our program. All attendees are required to wear a mask unless you are speaking. If you need a mask, raise your hand and we'll bring one to you. I see any? No. Excellent. Given how often they'll be speaking, our primary candidates will socially distance and remove their masks for the entirety of the program. LCTV is here tonight and is sharing the forum live to our website and Facebook page. And LCTV will also rebroadcast the forum next week. Check their website at lctv.org for the schedule. All the questions you hear tonight were submitted by residents in Senate District 13. Those who could join us tonight will ask their questions themselves. Our volunteers will ask questions for those who couldn't attend. The candidates received a list of topics in advance but have not seen the questions. When it is your time to ask a question, Kelly will call on you. Please step to the microphone, remove your mask, and ask your question. We will clean the microphone in between speakers. Right. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. By virtue of a coin toss, Cameron will go first. Candidates will then have 2 minutes to respond to each question. And closing remarks will be 3 minutes each, and we'll begin with David. And on to our program. Kelly?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you all for coming tonight. Really do appreciate it. Got off to a little bit of a late start, but I'm looking forward to tonight being just a wonderful program. So as Chris mentioned, we did a coin toss at the beginning to decide the order, and Cameron will be starting us off. So Cameron, you have 3 minutes to make your opening remarks.
I'm excited to be here. Hi, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces in here, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Cameron Rennie. I currently live in my hometown of Bristol with my husband, Adam, and our 2 young kids. We have Georgie, who's 4, and little Leon, who's 2. I grew up in a working-class family, and my father unfortunately suffered from untreated mental illness as well as substance use disorder, so things were often pretty hard. However, I also grew up in a very strong community, and I remember growing up and feeling very loved and supported despite the hardships I may have had at home. And I think that really stuck with me. I know how big of a difference it can make when you give back to your community. And I started that very young. When I was just in high school, I co-founded a anti-tobacco education group with both classmates and local law enforcement. We would travel around and do little presentations at the elementary schools about the dangers of tobacco. This passion continued. When I was in college, I was studying, I was working, but I was also my college's liaison for the Teen Families in Need program at our local YWCA, which is an amazing organization you should look up, not right now, I only have 3 minutes. That continued. I graduated in the midst of the Great Recession, and I was working as a waitress, and I was also volunteering my time at the adult education facilities nearby, helping to tutor some really amazing new Mainers as they studied for their citizenship exams. And it was around then I realized I wanted a career in public service, not just the extra time that I had left over. I also really wanted health insurance someday, and that's part of what led me to become a school counselor, and that's what I am now. I worked my way through my program, and I've been doing it ever since, and I love it. It's a great job. I love working with the kids, the families, the community organizations. I do the extras. I do clubs for kids. I do committee work. I help design policies and procedures, both at a school-wide and a district-wide level. I've given time to the Maine School Counselor Association. I've been president of the Maine School Counselor Association, advocating for our students and for my profession. I've also been really fortunate in my life to have a lot, not only a strong community, but a lot of strong women and role models, one of which was my grandmother. And she would often say, you have to give the community your time. It can't be delegated. You have to give the community your time, your effort, your work. And that's why I'm here. When I heard that Chloe Maxman was stepping down, I felt that was an opportunity to give my community my time, my effort, and my work. That's why I'm here now.
Thank you, Cameron. And now we'll hear an opening statement from David Levesque.
There we go. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you all for being here this evening to listen to Cameron and I. Thank you to LCDC for organizing this, and it's a great opportunity for both of us to speak with you, and hopefully we continue this afterwards as well. And please do see me if you have additional questions at the end of the day or the evening, if you will. Well, as you should know by now, because I was introduced as David Levesque, I am David Levesque. I am an attorney with an office in Damascotta. I live in Newcastle with my wife and 3 boys. My wife is a teacher at Lincoln Academy, and 2 of my sons are currently attending there. And but we all live in Newcastle, and I've been here for 22 years now, and this is really my home now, although I grew up in Hancock County. We started off in a place called Brooksville, and my father worked to dismantle a mine. Believe it or not, we have a mine on the coast of Maine. When that job was done, he and my uncle decided to start fishing, so they both obtained a boat and started lobstering. Despite the fact that they both had jobs, we weren't wealthy by any means. We actually lived in the housing, the mining housing, and our bathroom was a bucket upstairs above a seat that my brother had to take out daily and dump into an outhouse outside. We relied often on government food. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but it was a big green, not green, the orange cheese and some type of meat product, but also with food stamps and WIC benefits. Now they call TANFs, many things. We had to do it. My mother had 5 boys in her household that she had to feed while my father spent most of his time drinking and away from home. My mother tried hard. She worked hard. She worked to keep the family together, but she worked weekends and nights as well, cleaning, helping out as much as she could. But at one point, she decided to go back to school, and she was a role model for me because she turned it around, and I was the first one to graduate from college because I followed her model of seeing that education can change things. And it did, and it's transformed my life as someone who started out in a poverty house, and now I am glad to be here as an attorney and running for the Senate. That's my time.
We have a lot of great questions that were submitted by voters in Senate District 13. So we're going to start. I'm going to ask the first question on behalf of our timekeeper, who's busy and can't get up here to ask it for herself. Anna Rydell of Wiscasset asks, what are your top 3 legislative priorities, and why do you think you'll be able to achieve them? Cameron, you will answer this question first.
There it is. Hey. My top 3 legislative priorities, the issues that I see as most important and most crucial to solve as soon as possible in our district are our affordable housing crisis, and it is a crisis. It is the lack of affordable and accessible health care universally, and it is the conservation, the environment, doing something about climate change. Affordable housing is not only an ethical issue, because I do firmly believe that everybody deserves a safe place to lay their head at night. It is an economic issue. We need places for people to live if we want to do something about the worker shortage. It is an ethical issue as well, because sometimes I work with families, right? I'm a school counselor, and I've worked with a number of families that have been in potentially unsafe situations, and there's literally nowhere else to move. That is a major problem. Affordable prescriptions, I think, are very important. Somebody very close to me needs some very expensive prescriptions on a regular basis in order just to stay alive. And I think that the drug prices that we have currently are predatory, and it's a major issue. Climate change is the last but not the least of our issues. We don't have decades to deal with this. We have years to deal with this. Everything about Maine is very dependent on our environment. We're talking agriculture, aquaculture, fisheries, tourism industry. Not only do we have a responsibility to the next generations to protect this planet, we also have a responsibility to provide them with the possibility of a life here and an economy here, and that is also dependent on the environment. I think I am the right person to try and solve these very important issues for a lot of reasons, but not least of which is communication, because what it really comes down to is working together in teams.
David.
Healthcare, the environment, and the awful problem we have with addiction and mental illness are my 3 top priorities. I think I can make great headways in that because I'm a proven leader. The former president of the Lincoln County Bar Association, former president of the Maine State Bar Association, president of the Damascotta Chamber of Commerce. When I am involved, I take leadership roles and I take it seriously. And I have to take healthcare seriously. Everyone needs to have access to affordable healthcare. It's a serious problem if we don't. The environment is affected every day by everything we do, and the evidence of climate change is real. Science tells us that, and we need to do something about it. Lastly, I lost a cousin due to an overdose death over the last year. He is one of the 636 people who have died due to an overdose. We need to do something about this. And I'm willing and motivated to do something about it. I believe I have the skills to do it, and I hope that you agree with me about that. So, thank you.
Thank you, David. The next question that we'll take will come from Jim Hatch of Bristol. Jim, if you'd like to step to the microphone over here. Yes, right over there, and ask your question. And David, you will go first this time.
I'd like you to discuss your position on the creation of a consumer-owned utility to take over electrical distribution in the state from our current investor-owned utilities that are basically shipping all the money to overseas companies.
You hit on one of the major problems with our current system is that our money is leaving the state and it's going to Spain. It's also we don't have the control over this system that is not as reliable as it should be. So I am totally for Seth Berry's pursuit of the consumer-owned utility. And in that vein, I think we need to work on microgrids and maybe using the consumer-owned utility as a way to discuss more, not just about delivery, but production and where our energy is coming from, whether it's hydro, whether it's solar, whether it's tidal. So we need to look at all of it, but we cannot keep going with the fossil fuels. So I will try my very best to promote programs that would support clean energy in Augusta, but in that specific issue, I am definitely for the consumer-owned utility. And we grant a monopoly, and we shouldn't be giving a monopoly to folks who don't care about our community and who don't reinvest the money that we give them in the business and service that they're delivering. And if we don't prevail on the consumer-owned utility, I will do all I can to hold them accountable to make sure that they're delivering energy at the lowest cost possible and not sending money away to high executives. I mean, it's a real struggle nowadays for people to pay their electricity bill, and we need to turn that around, and a consumer-owned utility will do that.
Thank you, David. Cameron.
Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. My short answer is yes. I support consumer-owned utilities flat out. I think there's a lot of reasons behind it. First of which is that you mentioned is, of course, it keeps our money local. Contributing to the local economy just makes sense for all of us. We all we all know this. It helps the whole community. The other major reason, though, for me, and maybe more important for our future generations, is the consumer-owned utilities. We have a lot more power and to be able to push those renewable energies. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm not super pleased with CMP. I'm not pleased with their lack of service, to be honest. And I feel like there's been a lot of pushback from a lot of large fossil fuel companies on integrating renewable energy into our energy grid. And I think a consumer-owned utility would be one of the most efficient ways that we could get that started. So yeah, I'm pro it. Let's do that. I would work towards it. But you know what? I'm only one person, so if I can't, of course I would do whatever I could to try and hold this company, which really does have a monopoly on our state, accountable for their lack of service.
Our next question will be coming from Jean Donato of Bristol. And Cameron, you will answer this question first.
We need to set this to short level. Is this better? If the Gulf of Maine continues to warm as quickly as it's doing now, what would you do to support the fishing industry if the traditional catches are no longer as abundant as they used to be? What other trades specifically do you feel will provide the most opportunities for training and possibly retraining? And how do you propose making that training feasible financially and logistically? Thank you.
Here I go? Yep. Thank you. That's an important question and something that we really do need to be considering. My goal in reality, though, is going to be to take action before it gets to the point that our waters warm so much that our fisheries aren't viable anymore. This is a major goal of mine, is to do something about climate change before we lose our industries, our heritage industries, and preserve our way of life for future generations. Now, Lord forbid that doesn't happen, and if the worst did happen and we did lose certain fisheries that are traditional for the coast of Maine, I think it would, well, other things may come in. You may be able to transfer to a different sort of fishing. That's always a possibility as well. The lobsters are moving up right now, not necessarily gone forever yet. But there's always going to be opportunities in new industries and in new trades in the state of Maine. Primarily, once again, renewable energies are going to be a really big opportunity to have good paying jobs right here in our district as well as in our state. I was actually just reading something about a potential spaceport maybe that was just funded for in Brunswick. That looks fascinating, and it looks like it could bring some really good jobs to potentially our area. I mean, that's an hour drive from most of our district right here. That's opportunities for more families to be moving in and for more small businesses to profit from increased population in this area. So in closing, I don't have a simple answer for you, but I certainly would work my very hardest to make sure that we are taking care of our people and taking care of those fishermen who could potentially be displaced.
Question, Jean, I appreciate it. The truth is that we are being affected by the constant warming of the Gulf. 30 some odd years ago, I took my last trip out. The family, to continue the prior story, is that they moved from lobster fishing to ground fishing eventually, and I would go out to sea with my father and his brother, and I didn't do the 7-day trips, but the 3-day trips, and the last 3-day trip, I spent more time over the rail than I did helping anybody, so I thought that college thing made a lot of sense to me. And I'm glad I did, because our ground fishing industry in Maine is almost non-existent now. To find a boat down east that is doing ground fishing is very rare. Luckily, we have some down South Bristol that are still at it, but most of the ground fishing folks are down in Gloucester or New Bedford. So Maine is losing its tradition there. If we keep damaging our planet like we are and warming the Gulf, we're going to lose that lobster fishery as well. And we have a great lobster fishery. They're great at monitoring themselves and making sure that the females are thrown back and that the males are kept, that they're the right size. Self-regulation is great, but they can't self-regulate against a damaging environment. So I'm really scared about that. So we do have to find other opportunities just in case we can't change things. And also for the people who just prefer not to work on the sea like myself or don't want to get sick. But we need to invest in more community college. Luckily, this supplemental budget has allowed for 2 years of community college, but I think that should be 4 or enough to get somebody certified for the trade that they're interested in. So that's my time, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. The next question is going to come from our volunteer, Mary, will be asking this question on behalf of a resident of Newcastle. And David, you will answer this question first.
Great. So what do you think the state government can do to increase the supply of affordable housing in Lincoln County?
Well, Mary, thank you for asking the question, especially since it's somebody from Newcastle, and I'm from Newcastle, and I serve on the Newcastle Select Board. And one thing we did recently is to waive permit fees for people who want to add an accessory dwelling to their property as a first step towards doing something heading us towards more affordable housing. It is a huge problem here. We could solve the labor issues. We could solve the demographic lopsidedness of the county if we had places for families to live. We can bring people here. We need places for them to live. And it is very expensive. And I, in my practice, I do real estate law, and most of the people buying are people with means, and people without means or young families starting can't be here. They can't afford it. So we need to find local solutions. The state tried it, and it seems like a one-size-fits-all remedy for the state. I don't think it's the best one. I think we need to really work locally, like Newcastle is starting. Newcastle has formed a task force to look into those issues and see what more we can do beyond just waiving some permit fees. But we need to do it, and I'm going to fight for it. As I mentioned before, I have started out in very, very substandard housing, and if that's the only thing you can afford, that's not the way to live, and we shouldn't allow it as a society. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameron.
Yeah, affordable housing. It's one of my big 3. And when I say this is a crisis in this area. This isn't just people who want to move here, can't find a place to live. This is people who have lived here who are losing their homes because maybe they're renting and their apartment building has been sold or their home has been sold, and they have nowhere else in this community that they can live. This is people who have grown up here who want to stay in their community and work in their community, and they cannot afford any of the small amount of housing options that are available. I strongly believe the future of our district is dependent on, of course, the ability for people to live here, and for people who have grown up here to be able to live here, and also people from away who want to move here to be able to live here. So thank you. This is an important question. Affordable housing. It was mentioned before that actually the legislature did just pass the bill, I believe, that allows for a duplex to be built on a single-family lot. And in, I want to say, rapid growth areas, you can even do a 4-unit. And it also allows for everybody across the state, if they want to be able to build an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, on their own property. I think this is something. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's something. I know there are certain communities that really worry about things like septic or water issues that could be affected by this bill. I think for our district, this is going to take some really creative thinking and some creative teamwork. I'm assuming, we're talking all stakeholders need to be involved, public, private, landowners, business owners. I was reading this really cool article about some affordable housing they did up in Knox County, and they brought in Habitat for Humanity. Ooh! Anyways, it's possible. It's going to take creative thinking and strong communication skills, and I would love to tackle it.
Cameron, you should stay standing. You get to answer this next question first. This is going to be asked by our campaign manager, Howard. For someone who could not be here, a voter in Bremen has this question.
Despite some improvement, Maine continues to have an above-average food insecurity rate. Even Lincoln County's numbers are alarming at 13.6%, or just under 5,000 residents being food insecure. 1 in 5 of our state's kids are struggling with hunger, the worst in New England, and 16% of Maine seniors are at risk of going hungry. What policies would you support to help end hunger in Maine?
Hunger in Maine is a more complex problem than it sounds like, for sure. The policies I would recommend, well, first of all, I believe the legislature also just passed a bill that is going to continue doing free hot lunches and breakfasts for all students in the state, which is, thank you, that's a start. I believe they are also going to, there was a study done to provide a roadmap to end hunger by the year 2030 in the state of Maine, and I believe they just voted to try and follow that roadmap as closely as possible as well. Because when it comes down to it, hunger is a symptom, it is not the root cause. The root cause is people that are unable to afford to live here, to afford the basic necessities of what they need. So until we are able to combat poverty or lack of well-paying jobs or lack of affordable housing, we have to treat the symptom. And I think the way to do that is to fund the amazing organizations that are already working. We have pantries throughout this district. They're doing wonderful work. Meals on Wheels is delivering all kinds of meals to our food insecure elderly as well. We just need to give people the money they need to do the good work that they're doing, and then try and attack the root causes as well we can with policies that have been laid out for us.
Cameron. David.
That anybody goes hungry, not only in this state, but in this country, the richest country in the world, the best farming there is. Nobody should go hungry. Nobody should have to choose rent over meals or medicine over meals. We need to do something about it, and it's not just food pantries. It is a commitment that the state has for 2030 to eradicate hunger there, and it's more than food pantries. It's making sure people have jobs at a livable wage, making sure they have housing, making sure they have opportunity. That's what's going to change it, but we do need to have the stopgap measures, and certainly Good Shepherd is out there serving, and the local churches are doing food pantries. That is helpful, and the school lunch program is terrific, but we have to really look, as Cameron has said, the root causes of it and change this. So I would support the ongoing initiative of the goal for 2030 to end hunger in this state. Thank you.
Thank you. David, you'll answer this next question first. The voter who submitted this from Booth Bay was not able to be here, so our volunteer Jan's going to ask the question on their behalf.
Good evening, Cameron and David. Here is your question. How have the challenges that you have met in your professional career prepared you for the new challenges that you might face as state senator?
Thank you. That's well, I say I've taken a lot of black eyes as an attorney, luckily not physically, but mentally, because it's a challenging job. And when you pursue justice for clients against somebody else who believes they're pursuing justice for clients, there's obviously going to be disagreements and tough discussions, but oftentimes we come to a resolution particularly when we're gaining information from each other, we're listening to each other, we're not name calling, we're trying to work through things. As an attorney, I believe I'm a problem solver first and foremost. And my job is to, and that's what I've always tried to do, is figure out how are we going to solve this problem. And I will take that way of looking at things to the legislature as well. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to actually testify to the legislature. I've testified in front of appropriations, in front of the Education Committee twice, in front of the Judiciary 5 times at least on various nominations of judges. So I feel very comfortable by putting myself in those places, and I feel that I could bring what I've learned throughout my years and the way I approach things, and I would be effective as a legislator in Augusta. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Cameron. How have the challenges you have met in your professional career prepared you for the new challenges you will face as a state senator?
Okay, thank you. All right, now you can hear me. I think my job helps me be uniquely suited to the position, to be perfectly honest. So I have the opportunity to work in a public school, and that is with what I see as a true cross-section of our community. These are people's kids that I'm working with, but also people's families, people's grandparents, people's extended families. I am hearing their stories. I am working with community resources to help them solve problems and get access to the things that they need, which I think is a major part of being a legislator. Another piece of it is I've been at this a minute. I've been in many leadership positions throughout my volunteering and my school life. And when I was with the Maine School Counselor Association, I was routinely advocating on a state level and working directly with the DOE to help our students and to advocate for my profession. On top of all of this, I've learned to work surprisingly well with people I don't necessarily see eye to eye with. There are parents, there are other school staff who we do not agree on many issues, but you can still get things done even when you don't agree on every issue. I remember when I was in my internship and there was a woman who was so mad at me, she took out her dentures and she hucked them at me from across the table. And I tell you what, she left that meeting and we were on the same page. We were good. We were a team. And that is doable. And I think that is a major part of what would help me be a very effective state senator, is my ability to work with people who I may not see eye to eye with, who I may not get along with, and who may disagree with everything about me, but we can often find a common goal in there somewhere. If your communication skills are strong, it can be done.
The next question comes to us from a voter in Wiscasset, and I'm going to ask the question on their behalf. And Cameron, you will answer this question first. As a newly elected senator, would you be willing to bring the Pine Tree Amendment forward as a sponsor or co-sponsor? And if so, what kinds of actions would you take to build on what Senator Maxman and the advocacy team who worked on the efforts this year have already made?
Yes. That is my flat answer. Absolutely 100% yes. I think the Pine Tree Amendment, maybe there's somebody out there in this room or watching who isn't sure what it is. That is a proposal for a constitutional amendment for the state of Maine's constitution that gives us the right to clean air and clean water in a clean environment. And I think that sounds like an amazing basis to start with to get us to where we need to be environmentally and to base our policy decisions off of. I would be happy and proud to sponsor or co-sponsor the Pine Tree Amendment. And I let them know that when I was at their last strategy session on Zoom just a few weeks ago. Yeah, is that the whole question? Just if I'm, yeah, let's do it.
David.
Let's do it. Maine's natural resources are incredible, and why, that's why a lot of us live here, is for the clean air and the clean water. The Sunshine Movement brought this movement for constitutional amendments for clean air and clean water. Montana, New York, I believe Pennsylvania, they've all saw that is the way to go and way to commit their lives. And it's hard for me to believe that this amendment has not made it through in Maine because of what we have around us. So I would, yes, work very hard to get that Pine Tree Amendment into our Constitution, and that everything we do, we will be looking at that and saying, does it affect our right to breathe? Does it affect our right to clean water? If we've done that, we wouldn't have this mess with PFAS on very fertile farmland now has gone to waste. So it's not just a constitutional amendment, it's a way of thinking going forward, and we should be focused on that as we go forward. As other states, it used to be Maine, as Maine goes, so goes the nation. Well, let's get caught up to some of the nation and do what's right. Breathe well and enjoy the clean water. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Sticking with the topic of the environment, I have a question that was submitted by a student at Lincoln Academy who has a test tomorrow and could not come today. This student also is not eligible to vote this year, but you will be representing them, and so they wanted me to ask this question, which I'm happy to do. David, you will answer this question first. What specific measures would you take to deal with pollution, such as trash and single-use plastic, et cetera, that is found in our district?
Well, first of all, we have to find opportunities to repurpose the waste that we have. Maybe not first of all, because we used to be able to recycle much more plastic than what we're able to now. We need to find markets for the waste that we have. But maybe looking down the chain, we need to have less packaging. And I'm happy that we have the plastic bag prohibition. Thank you, Holly, for that. That has made a great leap forward. I don't see bags in trees as much anymore, but we have other waste that we need to figure out what to do with, and part of it is reducing it. So I think it's important that we're constantly talking about it. We're looking for ways to reduce it. We're putting the cost of waste of excess packaging on the manufacturers so that they're innovating and finding ways to reduce the waste as well. I do have to say that my kids went to Lincoln Academy, and I have my son here too, who can actually vote in this upcoming election. Although he's 17 now, he'll be 18 by the election. I am listening to those students because it's really important, and seeing them focused on the environment is reassuring that we can start to live the stories that of saying that we believe that we shouldn't pollute and actually clean this place up. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Cameron.
Kelly, I'm sorry, it was a long day at school. Could you say it one more time?
Absolutely happy to do that. What specific measures would you take to deal with pollution, like trash and single-use plastic?
That's a good question. I love youths. And it's so important that they're engaged. Honestly, they are just such a huge reason of why I'm even doing this. So, single-use plastics and garbage. Yeah, I agree. I think a great first step was banning the use of single-use plastic bags in our district. I mean, and I appreciate unnamed local businesses who are willing to take that step before it was even mandated. There's lots of things our community can probably do to work together to lower this, unfortunate impact of our single-use kind of consumerist society that we have going on. I love the idea of actually being able to recycle things. I remember I was pretty disappointed when my local transfer station stopped taking a lot of certain plastics. And, geez, do they even do aluminum cans anymore? Yeah, they still do that. Either way, I remember my recycling bin went from usually being pretty full to I just can't do as much anymore. I don't have an immediate fix to it, though. That's something that I would take very seriously, and I would want to talk to the people who know more than I do and talk to all the stakeholders involved, and then try and make a thoughtful decision on something that we can do for our community in order to lower the impact of garbage.
The next question, Cameron will answer this one first. It's a long question, so you can sit for a second. And it comes to us from Jeff Bates of South Bristol.
As you are probably aware, Maine is the only state of the union that does not have a centralized public defender system. Instead, farming out indigent cases to private attorneys. The state is being sued by the ACLU of Maine, which claims that the lack of a public defender system creates one system of justice for the wealthy and another one for the poor. The Maine legislature last week allocated $1.24 million to fund the hiring of 5 public defenders for underserved areas of the state not covered by private attorneys. The funding includes no money for support staff. Do you think this bill goes far enough or is more needed?
Sorry. I don't think it goes far enough. I do think more is needed. It is, I find it sad and a little shameful, honestly, that we don't have a public defender system for our citizens. I think it's a constitutional right to have somebody defend you. I think we've been doing the best that we can with what we have, and I know that I believe the state reimburses attorneys for, people aren't going without legal defense. They're still getting legal defense, but I do think that it makes sense for the state to have a public defender. Or a public defender's office. I think it's a good first step to make sure that people are covered, especially our poorest citizens who need representation in rural areas. We are a rural district. It is, I know in my job, as I am trying to help people locate resources, sometimes it can be very difficult just because of the lack of resources that we have in this area. So, I don't know. It's a great first step. I do think that we need more.
David?
Do need more, but it doesn't necessarily have to be public defenders. We've had a system in the state where attorneys have been called and volunteered to help the state honor its constitutional commitment and represent those, I won't say falsely accused, those accused of a crime to get the defense that they need. The problem really is not whether or not private attorneys are taking it or we have a private public defender's office. It's whether or not the people who are accused by the state are at parity with the prosecutors. Prosecutors have an office, they have staff, they have police who do investigations for them. They are well suited for what they need to do. Attorneys, may just be a solo attorney, has to defend somebody accused at, well, when I was state bar president, it was $65 an hour. They couldn't afford rent. They couldn't afford an assistant. They couldn't afford a profit, but they couldn't afford an investigator like the state has. They couldn't afford research as the state has at that state. So during that time, I was an advocate for, and the bar was as well, as bringing that from a $50 payment at that time up to $65. Currently, they're at 80. I don't know if the new bill brings them up to 100 like they wanted and need. Frankly, I think it should be 150 to be even close to be on parity with the state. And by the way, what the prosecutors are paid, you calculate in their benefits and their vacations as well. That's not calculated in what gets paid to attorneys. I'm told to stop, but this is a big issue, so I want to keep going. But there's more to do, Jeff. That's where I'd leave it at.
Thank you. The next question is coming from a resident in Damariscotta. David, you will answer this question first, and our volunteer Mary is asking the question on that voter's behalf.
A long question. A recent report by Maine's Permanent Commission on the Status of Women noted that 141 child care centers closed in Maine during their pandemic, and many more closed temporarily. The lack of affordable and available child care is hampering the ability of many women to return to work. What would you do to address the lack of affordable child care so that women can re-enter the workforce and provide for their families?
Try to determine what is making child care so expensive. Right? And I think part of it is that we want quality people watching our children. Fortunately, we're not paying them as much as they're worth. And, but for somebody to go to a university, such as the University of Maine at Farmington, which has a superior early childhood education program, and I don't say that just because I was the chair of their Board of Visitors, but maybe, they're nationally recognized. And it's expensive to have a 4-year college education. And somebody leaving with debt from their university, it's hard to take a minimum wage job for to be a early childhood education specialist in a child care. That has to be passed along. The cost of that has to be passed along to parents. So I think that's one of the issues. I think there's a lot of regulations that may or may not be appropriate for all child care facilities, but that is a big cost. So identifying all of those costs and addressing those costs is what's going to be crucial to go forward. Denmark, Norway, those countries, the government pays for child care. We should actually think about doing something like that, because I don't see some of those cost factors changing. So maybe a government subsidy at the minimum would help, if not full payment like those countries do. There's models out there, it seems to work. Maybe we should try it.
Thank you, David. Cameron.
As a parent who has spent a lot of time the past couple years in quarantine with their kids at various times, making it very difficult for me to work or to be at work consistently. I'm sorry, it's not just me. This guy's been doing it too. It's difficult. And the costs of childcare can be prohibitive. However, the people that are doing the very hard work of taking care of our youngest kids are woefully underpaid. They often don't have, strong health insurance or benefits. Sometimes they don't even have things like paid time off for being sick. This is a very important issue. I do know that I believe the legislature has just recently approved a subsidy of, I don't know, what, 12 million or so to help out with child care. I don't think it is reasonable or feasible, considering the cost of everything else, for the rise in salary for childcare workers to be put on the people who need the childcare themselves. Because honestly, everything is so expensive as it is. But there's other things that the government could try or we could look into. I think even more subsidies is not unheard of. Maybe we could look into stronger tax credits for families who have to pay a lot for childcare, who have multiple children in childcare. Once again, I think it comes to talking to the people who know and coming up with creative solutions and keeping all stakeholders in mind.
Thank you. Our next question, Cameron, you would answer this one first. Sorry to make you stand up again, so both of you so quickly. Jason Putnam of Wiscasset has a question for you both.
Everybody, what is your view on the current hot issue in public education, that is critical race theory? Is that the same thing as teaching an accurate history of our nation? Do you think parents have the right to vet or to approve what teachers tell their students?
Critical race theory. It certainly is. I mean, I have watched the news, as I'm sure you all have, and seen very heated school board meetings that are honestly a little terrifying. I don't see this as a huge issue for District 13 in Maine. Our issues with education, I think, have to do with funding it and with supporting our families so our students have their very best chance at being successful in life. I will happily say I do think public education should always be teaching facts and should absolutely be historically accurate. But I think my focus as a state senator would be on improving life for the people in my community. And I don't see this as a huge issue for District 13 specifically.
Thank you. David.
So as we teach history, or as we teach, we should be true, factual, and present all views, all different points of views. But we need to recognize the biases that we bring, that teachers bring, that parents bring in that delivery. So I think instead of, I hope it's not slanted in this community in any one particular way. I hope we recognize that when we do our teaching or presenting materials, there are biases there. Somebody else may teach something a different way, which may, if we are aware of it, may make us do better. But I think, Jason, sort of what you're asking about too is local control. Is that important? And I believe it is important. However, the local control is to elect our school board members and to express to those school board members in a respectable manner our views. But then we turn it over to the school board members and they make decisions. If we don't like the decisions, there's a way to replace them later. But being disrespectful, hollering, shouting, that's not the way to get to the end result of education. And certainly if somebody really has a disagreement with the school system, we do have private schools if people can afford them. And there's some school choice, at least with the high school level there. But as far as the aspect of using the school boards and local control, I still think we should hold on to that a bit. Thank you.
Thank you both. The next question comes from a voter in Newcastle. Howard's going to ask that question, and David, you would answer it first.
Hello again. As you know, ranked choice voting can currently be used in all federal races, but can only be used in primary races at the state level. Ranked choice voting can't be used in general election races for governor or Maine legislature. Would you be willing to introduce and support a constitutional amendment to extend ranked choice voting to the governors and legislative races to be consistent with all the other ranked choice voting in Maine?
I would. And I think, well, the way I look at it, and I've been thinking about this recently, is that a lot of people have fought wars and died to protect our right to vote. And when we vote, we want the vote to matter. And if we're electing somebody with, say, 39% of the vote, for example, we're wondering, are we really having the value of, yeah, I'm losing my words too because it's been a long day, but I will say that it seems inconsistent to me where you would have ranked choice voting, you find it important in some races, but not all races. We need to be consistent in our policies as we go forward, not just in this one, but other ones. And I've seen it, the thing about being a lawyer, you're reading laws and statutes all the time, and I think of them critically, and I say, well, are they saying what they mean or not? And I think my skill set going up there will be is to read things critically, propose legislation, suggest changes, and get to what's really meant by the statutes, and then hold us to it. If we have a policy under one statute, we have to get it to another. One thing that comes to mind, and it may not be a favorable topic, is we have medical marijuana in a state. It's a legal thing. Well, we tax it at 5%, or at least we don't tax other medicines. So it just seems inconsistent to me where you would call something medicine on one end and not tax it, and then one specific thing on the other. Just an example of inconsistencies that I've seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameron. Ranked choice voting.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Ranked choice voting. Absolutely. I mean, I think we all know why it came up anyways. We're supposed to live in a democracy, and in a democracy, the person who gets the majority of the votes is supposed to be the one that then goes into public service. And I think ranked choice voting is a simple way to make that happen, and we're already doing it with our other elections, so why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we carry that on and just do all of them that way? Geez, or at least a runoff, come on. Yeah, that's a very frustrating thing that even exists. Yeah, it's important. It's important for us to be able to have true representation. It's important to avoid minority, sort of maybe even fringe beliefs to become in power. I mean, look at the French election that just happened. Had they not had a runoff, we could have Marine Le Pen as the in charge of a European nation. There's just, I don't know, it's very clear to me. Hopefully I'm not just preaching to the choir, but.
I promise you we're almost finished. We have just two more questions. This one comes from a voter in Waldoboro, not for me, although I am from Waldoboro, but I'm going to ask this question on their behalf. Cameron, you will answer this question first. Democrats have led the way in passing legislation that controls the cost of insulin and has been helpful in other drug categories, but there is still a long way to go to make prescriptions, such a critical component of health care, affordable to the majority of Mainers. What is your plan to help make pharmaceuticals affordable to all Maine consumers, especially those with low or fixed incomes?
Pharmaceuticals are obviously a very important piece of health care. Especially, I mean, we are in one of the oldest counties and the oldest state in the nation, and people need prescriptions, and that should be available. Healthcare needs to be available and affordable and accessible to every single person. And it's not just prescriptions. We need substance use disorder treatment. We need mental illness treatment. I don't know who decided that our eyes and our teeth aren't part of regular health care, but that's ridiculous. Everybody deserves basic health care and access to the treatments and the prescriptions, the life-saving medications that they need. In my personal life, someone I care about, I've already mentioned this deeply, has to think about the cost of those prescriptions too much. people shouldn't have to make big life decisions based on whether they can afford or not afford the medications that do not cost that much to produce, mind you, if they can afford those or not. I've started rambling. They tried to do a bill this year that would cap the cost of medications based on, I believe, Canadian pricing. I was really hopeful about that for a while, but I think it was downgraded to they're going to turn it into a committee to research the possibility about pricing the cost of prescriptions at a Canadian level. I would do whatever I could do or needed to do or was able to do to fix that problem, though.
Thank you, Cameron. David.
I think we need to take care of our healthcare system. We really look at the healthcare system and see where money's going and why. How is it improving our health? It's more important to be talking with our physicians about outcomes and risks and not the financial cost or financial burden it's going to imposing on us. If you make healthcare decisions based on financial considerations, you're defeated right from the beginning. You're not at the same level of everybody else. So your financial status should not dictate your health. We need to focus on that. As far as prescriptions, generally, I think we need to look at Canadian or bringing in mail prescriptions. I mean, there's many different things, but I worry that we're overprescribing things, because you watch the evening news and there's drug commercials after drug commercials. Are they necessary? I trust our providers are thinking the best for us, but I wonder if we're on too many meds anyways, and should look for alternative medicines that would help steer us away from this apparent dependence on drugs. Recently saw advertisings for drug takebacks that was happening around the state, and I just amazed to think of, like, you go in and you need some medicine, and instead of just giving you 2, they give you 30. You use 2 and they sit around in your drawer, and that's when it leads to problems if somebody just happens to take those without medical supervision later. So we need to focus, really, do we need all those prescriptions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last question for the evening comes from Pat Smith of Westport Island. And David, you will respond to this question first.
First of all, thank you both for running. I would not want to be in your shoes. Thanks for stepping up. We need good people that are willing to do this. And I have discovered that a sense of humor is more important than ever in today's world. So who or what makes you laugh?
Oh, what makes me laugh is delivering one of those good dad jokes to my boys, and they just cringe or whatever, and saying, that gets me. I have a stressful job, and I'm sure Cameron does too, and I just have to find humor throughout the day, or I would not be able to survive it. And whether it's the funniest offhand comment or anything, I look for it where I can. So I can't isolate what exactly gives me a chuckle, except for the boys. And when I get them on a good one or bust them on something, that's one of the toughest questions of the night, what makes me laugh. But, thank you. But this is a tough process, and it is, believe me not, difficulty to stand in front of this many judges instead of one, or a jury this big instead of a smaller one. But I believe I have to do it, because all too often I've said there ought to be a law for this, or this is written bad, we should do something about it. Then I realize I have the skills that I can do that. So why don't I get off my duff and do it? So I'm putting myself through this difficult process because of that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Cameron, what brings you laughter?
All kinds of things. I'm really fortunate. My job is awesome. I get to teach kids from ages 4 all the way up through 14, and they are absurd. Embarrassing middle school students is hilarious. 5-year-olds are so bad at telling ages. It's amazing. I love it because in one day I'll go into a pre-K class and they'll ask me if I'm 23. And then I'll go into a kindergarten class and they'll ask me if I'm 65 because they cannot tell. They don't know anything. It's great. I actively seek humor in my life. Sometimes you just have to laugh because things can be kind of terrible. So my boys are hilarious. Little Georgie is on the autism spectrum, and he is obsessed with dinosaurs right now. So he enjoys being one and getting in his little inflatable T-Rex outfit and running around the house and chasing his brother. I thoroughly enjoy that. And dumb videos, dumb books by comedians like David Starris or Tina Fey or John Hodgman. Like, we got to get it where we can because life sure is short.
Thank you both very much. We had a lot more questions than we had time to ask tonight. Thank you so much to everyone who did submit a question. If your question was submitted and you didn't get an answer tonight, I strongly encourage you to reach out to the candidates. I think, as you have seen, they're very available. They want to talk to voters. They want to hear from you. So please do reach out to both of them. We now will have closing remarks. And David, I believe that you will deliver the closing remarks first. You have 3 minutes.
592-6151. Call me if you have questions. I don't want anybody to feel that they weren't fully informed when they cast a vote in June. I've been out knocking on a lot of doors, and I've realized 2 things very quickly. First, I believe all the demographic statistics that I've seen because we have a lot of older folks in this county. The second one is a realization that is sort of sad, is I've asked the people what are their concerns, and they just are scared and do not want to get the Republicans back into office. We have had control of the House and the Senate and the executive branch for the last couple of years. We can't lose that. They say we cannot go backwards on our successes. The legislature was commanded to cover 55% of the school education. Finally, it's being done. Revenue sharing, 5%. We were going over our first glance at the budget yesterday in Newcastle, and fortunately enough, that revenue sharing has helped make a really problem situation alleviated because of that sharing. The way we talk among ourselves, the derisiveness that we've seen with the former governor and our former chief executive, people are scared that that's going to come back and we're just going to fight these culture wars over and over again and not pull out of it. I asked them if they can see some hope. I told them I see some hope because I want to go up there. I want to speak with everybody in a very respectful way, but find the common things that we're all looking for and work towards that in a way, without name calling, without pushing or shoving. Not that I've seen any of that, but January 6th seems to think that we would lead that way. And I'm hoping that we can turn this around, that we can continue on, increase healthcare access, and continue on the good work that has been done over the last couple of years. So please do contact me if you have questions. The campaign's still always looking for help, so use that number to call and say you want to volunteer. And I look forward to seeing what is the future for this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, David. It's been a long day for me, too. Cameron, please, your closing comments.
Before I run out of time, I want to thank everybody here who came out tonight. That's a big deal, and everybody who is watching at home as well. A big thank you to the Lincoln County Dems as well as LCTV for providing this really wonderful opportunity. I really appreciate it. So, closing thoughts. I care deeply about public service. I think it is very important, and I am both willing and able to work to be the very best possible state senator that I can be for this district. I am a hard worker. I am, generally speaking, a quick study, and I genuinely care about our home, about our community, and about our state. At my current job, I am literally the person teaching the lessons on communication, on empathy, and on problem solving. And these are 3 skills that I think are desperately needed and honestly imperative to make real progress when you're in a group of diverse people. Public service is so important. You know the 3 things I care about the most, or I see as the most relevant currently. That's the affordable housing, the health care, obviously, and even more obviously, the climate. But public service is not about me deciding what needs to be done for you. Public service is about serving the public. As I've been knocking doors, I've heard a number of concerns, everything from the gouging of public employee pension plans, overregulation of the lobster industry, and even just like too much trash at the end of Route 32 in Waldoboro. These are all things that matter to people, and I want to be able to bring what you need and what you want to the table in Augusta. I can't get there by myself, though. I need help to be able to get there so I can help my community. If you have not given me $5 towards clean election campaigns, I would appreciate $5. That helps me qualify for more funding if I'm lucky enough to make it to the general election. If you don't have $5, but maybe you have a little bit of time, I would love to have you join my team and volunteer. There's so many different things you could do. You could give a little bit of time or a lot of time. Doesn't matter. I'm not picky, okay? And you can sign up to do either of those things on that table back there. But most importantly, and I feel like I'm talking to a bunch of people who are going to do this anyways, but most importantly, please go out and vote for me on June 14th. Get out there. Get your friends out there. Get your family out there. Voting is, as we all know, so important. So I can't do it without you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You two have not made it an easy choice. Chris has had some final comments for us, but thank you all for your attention.
Good evening, folks. We'd like to thank Cameron and David for joining us tonight, offering such thoughtful answers, and for stepping up to take on this job. Running for public office is an enormous commitment of time and energy, made not only by the candidates, but also by their families. We are grateful. Let us give them a round of applause. And thanks to all of you for attending tonight and watching from home. The June 14th primary is open to registered Democrats, and you may request your absentee ballot now on the Secretary of State website or at your town office. If you are not yet registered to vote, you can do that at your town office. If you are unenrolled, you may vote in the June 14th Democratic primary by changing your registration to Democrat, which you can do in advance or on Election Day at your town office or voting place. If you are registered in a different party, you can unenroll from that party at least 15 days before the primary election and enroll as a Democrat in advance or on Election Day at your town office. I want to add that if you are someone who will be 18 on the general election date, you can register now and vote in the primary, even if you are not 18 on the date of the primary. If you will be 18 by the general election, you can still register and vote in the primary. At various times in our history, the people of this nation have been tested and rose to the challenge to defend the liberties and rights of our people, including the most foundational right to peaceably choose our leaders through election. Do not allow those who ask you to hate, to resort to violence, or to overthrow the results of an election to win by default. If you are looking for meaning, hope, or something to be proud of in 2022, the thing you must do this year is learn about the candidates, decide who you want to lead, and go vote for them. We encourage everyone to visit our website at lincolncountydemocrats.com to find out how you can join LCDC and support progressive candidates in Lincoln County. Thank you, everyone, and good night.